Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and today I want to talk about the new crew of the new Star Trek show, the Pike show. And already I can tell with some of these new characters that they're going to have on the show that it has the potential to be a continuity disaster once again. I guess they could patch it up with all kinds of excuses like they did in season 2 of Discovery, things getting classified, people losing their memory, and excuses like that can be used, but it would still kind of annoy me if they do that. So we have Captain Pike, who we already saw in season 2 of Discovery, and I think he was one of the few good things in that season. That's what made the season watchable, and he actually felt like a Star Trek character, like a Starfleet officer and all of that, and so I'm hoping they will keep him that way. There is a slight continuity issue with the fact that he apparently knows his fate, he knows what will happen to him, so I wonder how they'll deal with that. In a lot of situations he will know that he's not in any real danger, so isn't that kind of like plot armor, not just for us the audience? We don't expect the main character to die, especially if it's a prequel and all of that, so that would be the case anyway, but the character himself knowing that is a bit of a problem, because that way he will never feel fear. He will know that he will be safe in every mission basically until he gets to that point in the future, which he saw, so he kind of knows the circumstances even, so I think it's a bit of a problem. But I am curious to see how they'll deal with all of that. Next we have Spock, who I think they kind of messed around with his background a little bit too much, especially with Michael being inserted into his past and her getting classified so that it will fit continuity, so they're kind of forcing her into all of that. And they added all kinds of strange things to his character, like him being dyslexic and all kinds of stuff like that. But the actor himself is pretty good, so if they give him good material, I think he can be great as a character. I kind of wish the whole show would just be a new crew with new characters and not having to rely on the nostalgia from an old show and to force themselves into it and to rewrite the backgrounds of characters and to be restricted by the continuity and all of that. It just creates problems. Unless if they simply say it's a brand new timeline, that things will happen differently than before, that it's basically a reboot, I think that's probably better, because at least that way they will be free from the continuity. It wouldn't be much of a concern. But if they try to insert it into the continuity as a prequel, then we have a bunch of problems, and visually obviously things will not look the same, even though I did like in this new footage that some things they do try to make it look like TOS and also futuristic and advanced at the same time, like Uhura's earplug thing does look similar to the way it was in TOS and yet still looks futuristic, so I do like that. So if they move into that direction, if they do kind of a retro future look and try to gradually fit it into the way things looked in TOS, then I will like it. And Uhura being on the ship is also a problem, because even though they say she's a cadet, so I guess age-wise it fits, but if she's a cadet, why is she already the communications officer with that thing in the ear? It feels forced and artificial. And also, if she knew Pike, how come when he was an invalid stuck in the wheelchair, why didn't she ask to see him when he was on the ship later on after his accident? So how come in that episode of TOS we never saw Uhura or some of these other characters who apparently knew him from before, and yet they never came to visit him? They were never curious about him, they never came to pay the respect. I guess it all happened off screen in between scenes, I guess it's possible, but the fact we don't see it in the original show will just seem odd, and it will be annoying how it doesn't really fit continuity and it's all messed up. How come Spock is the only one still loyal to him, and all the other people on the ship who knew him don't seem to care about him at all, as if they never met him? So it's a big problem in my opinion, especially with Uhura and Nurse Chapel, who all apparently knew Pike for years and then didn't bother to even pay him one visit after his accident, so it seems kind of ridiculous. It's also funny how the character of Number One and Nurse Chapel were played by the same actress in the original show, and yet here it's obviously two different actresses. I think it would have been funny if they actually cast someone who looks really similar simply to make it fit better, or if they do it as an inside joke inside the show, that could be funny. And Number One I also thought was okay in season 2 of Discovery, even though we don't really know much about her, and because she was such a minor character from just one episode of the original show, I guess they can do whatever they want with her, it won't really affect anything. And as for Nurse Chapel, there was a thing between her and Spock in the original show, so I'm wondering what they'll do with it in this show. And again, the fact that it's a prequel basically limits them. There are certain boundaries they cannot cross, otherwise it will be odd with the original show. It will not really fit, or it will be ridiculous. I guess they can use the excuses of, a mind wipe, she'll forget everything, or he'll forget everything, or both of them will forget everything. or if they agree to never mention it again. So I guess they can do all kinds of stuff, but it will be odd, it won't fit with the old show, and so that basically limits this show. So why have that limitation? It will basically make it less interesting. If we watch it knowing that certain things will never happen, then we won't be rooting for them to happen, and so it kind of damages the show, in my opinion. And if they don't want to worry about continuity, then why make a prequel at all? Just do a new show. If you do make a prequel, then you have to be careful with details like that, otherwise you'll just annoy fans of the original show if you don't get it right. And we also have Dr. Mabenga, who appeared in only 2 episodes of TOS, I think, and so it's almost pointless to use the name of a character who was so minor. Why not just make a new character instead of making him a character that we saw once in TOS? And so what's the point of doing that? It will again just reduce the sense of danger to the characters. Whenever they go to some planet, I'll know that he will always survive because he appeared in TOS. So what's even the point to do that when he was such a minor character who only appears in a few scenes in 2 episodes of TOS? And so what's even the point to tie him to that character? I don't really know. And we also have a blind actor called Bruce Horak, who will be playing a pale Andorian, which is a subspecies of Andorians which we saw in Star Trek Enterprise. And they were also telepathic with all kinds of psychic powers, and they're actually a very interesting group of people that we saw in Star Trek Enterprise, and so I'm kind of happy to see one of them in this show, even though his makeup looks more like the Discovery Andorians, who are kind of more annoying because it again didn't fit visually the way Andorians looked in the other shows. But at least by making him one of those strange Andorians, it opens up all kinds of new possibilities, and I'm guessing he will have telepathy or other powers and other senses that will compensate him being blind. And it's nice that they got an actual blind person to play him, because maybe this way he will seem more natural, as if he's really blind, because he really is. And I'm guessing he will use his antennas to sense his surroundings, and he will know things with some other sense. And having a sort of telepath in the crew might be interesting. So I kind of have the gut feeling that this might even be my favorite character on the show. You know, he's an exotic alien with strange powers who might be very wise or something like that. So I'm kind of having the sense that I might really like this character. One possible continuity issue with this is that didn't we saw a guy in a visor in season 2 of Discovery, which is taking place before this show? And so if they already had that kind of technology, then why don't they give it to this guy? So why is this guy blind if they actually have visors already, since we saw a guy with what looked like a visor in season 2 of Discovery? So this is a little bit of a problem. I guess they can mention it and say that that type of device simply doesn't fit this species of Andorians, because, you know, they're blind not just because of their eyes, but because their brains don't have the visual center or whatever. So I guess they can come up with an excuse, or maybe we can say that guy with the visor wasn't even blind at all, that he was simply wearing it for protection for his eyes in the transporter room or something. So maybe he wasn't even blind, and it's just a coincidence that it kind of looks like Geordi's visor, which, by the way, in TNG they kind of said this was brand new technology as well, so that was also kind of a continuity issue. And the strangest new character is this woman who is called Lan Nunian Singh. So is she supposed to be related to Lan Nunian Singh? So that's a huge problem with continuity, because this is set years before they met that ship which carries Khan and the other augments. And so what the hell is this woman who has Khan's last name doing in this show, which is set a few years before that show? And if so many characters who were on the ship with her at the same time and were still on the same ship when they later met Khan, how come no one ever mentions the fact that they met his daughter or granddaughter or whatever she is a few years earlier? And so it makes no sense. And will she have all kinds of amazing powers because she's also augmented, or she's descended from him, or they got her from suspended animation from some other ship that they found and I guess classified? That's why Kirk never knew about it. So will she have a super strength as well? Will she be the security officer on the ship? If so, will it not be too similar to Alara on the Orville, which also had superpowers? And so this is kind of iffy on too many levels, and so this makes me really worried about what they'll do with continuity. And what's the point of making her related to Khan if we're not going to see Khan on the show? So I guess we will see him at some point. And so this is again a clue that they're going to simply retcon everything and simply make it a reboot of the original series, and that way they can do whatever they want. And so this will basically ruin and rewrite the original series. I don't see it any other way. except with silly excuses like things getting classified, people losing their memories, the entire crew knowing a lot more than they seem to know in the original series, and they all keep quiet, and only Kirk doesn't know anything. And I'm sure Kirk will show up on the show in some point as well, even though in TOS he said he only met Pike once when he took command of the ship from him. So many potential problems with all of this. I don't see how they can get it all right. I guess the idea of a character who is augmented is interesting, it has a lot of potential, but why tie it to Nunian Singh specifically? Why mess your continuity that way if you're not going to do it fully? If you're going to have Khan actually show up in the show later and have some interaction with his relative, who is a main character, then that's another thing, but they're not going to do it, and so what's the point of even making her related? And another possibility is that it's simply her last name, but it will not even tie to anything. And if that's the case, then it's simply a red herring. It's misleading the audience into thinking there's going to be more to her than it seems, and then it will not be, and then it will be disappointing. So anyway, I look at it, it's a very big problem with this character, so I'm kind of skeptical that they'll be able to pull off something interesting that will not annoy old fans. Next we have the character of Lieutenant Erica Ortiz, who kind of reminds me of Vasquez from Aliens, and so it feels as if they're going for that type of character, so there's nothing wrong with that. I really liked Vasquez in Aliens, so if they do their own version of that kind of character, it might be fun. I'm just hoping it won't just be a stereotypical tough woman who is kind of manly and all of that. It will be kind of unimaginative if they simply reuse the same idea that we saw before. I'm hoping they will surprise us with some kind of more complicated character, more complex, and not so predictably stereotypical like it seems on the surface. And so the actors all seem like nice people. I'm hoping they're all really good actors. I'm hoping the writing will be good. Maybe we'll finally have a Star Trek show. So that's really all I had to say about it for today. Let me know what you think, and we can discuss all of this in the comments below. And I will see you all next time. Bye bye.